Have you ever wondered what lies beyond death, and what is about to happen to the world? A former American soldier died during a flight and returned with a terrifying vision. The sky has torn apart, and 2025 will mark the beginning of unprecedented spiritual chaos. In this video, you will hear Tyler Brooks's real story and understand why the time of choice has come. Like, subscribe to the channel, and comment below which city you are watching from. Let's track down those who are awakening together. Cointi. Name is Tyler Brooks. I am 41 years old, from Boise, Idaho, and for over 20 years I served in the United States Air Force as a maintenance technician on combat aircraft. After I left active duty, I continued working in aviation, testing new prototype drones and experimental fighter jets for a private company affiliated with the government. I have always been a technical man, practical, no room for mystical nonsense, until the day I died. 20,000 feet in the air. It was November 14th, 2023, and I was piloting a retrofitted fighter jet in autonomous test mode. Nothing out of the ordinary, until I felt a sudden heat rise from my stomach to my chest. My body froze. My heart raced. It felt like my soul was being pulled from the inside out in spasms. I tried to warn the radio, but everything went black. What I was told later is that I suffered a massive anaphylactic shock due to an experimental substance used in the cockpit. My heart stopped for 5 minutes. Technically, I was dead. But what happened in that time? It was beyond any technology, science, or military doctrine. First came the void, absolute darkness. But it wasn't dark like night. It was dark like the absence of a world. A living absence that swallowed me whole. Then something opened above me, as if the sky itself had been torn from top to bottom. But it wasn't sky. It was like the fabric of reality being ripped apart violently. A beam of white light shot through the tear. Not a soft light, but intense, piercing, with a sound of its own. And that's when I understood. That was the sound of reality breaking. I was sucked into this rift, not with my body, with what was left of me. I was pure thought, pure being, and inside this rift, I saw the planet from the outside. Not like in satellite images, but as if I were seeing the vibrations of the world. It was like looking into the soul of the earth. And there was a point pulsing with bright red light, the year 2025. It wasn't a date. It was a wound about to bleed. It was then that he peered, a presence made of warmth and order, an immense figure made of spiraling fragments of light. It had no face, but I knew it was an angel, and not one with soft wings. It was a being of war, a watchman of the end of cycles. It looked at me, or rather, pierced me with its consciousness, and it said, "You died to see it, because the world is about to go through the greatest chaos since the fall of Eden, and no one is ready." I trembled, even without a body. What he showed me next, I would never have believed it if I hadn't seen it with my own soul. I was pulled into a spiral of living light, as if I were stepping through the curtains of time. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't imagination. It was more real than anything I had ever experienced on Earth. On the other side, I was thrown into a colossal room, a space that defied logic and physics. The floor was made of something that looked like liquid mirror. There was no ceiling, and all around me were columns of light moving like sentient beings. In the center of the room was an empty throne, but what really took my breath away were the 13 figures sitting in a circle around that throne. Ancient beings, alive, shining like incarnate stars. Each of them exuded a specific vibration: strength, truth, pain, sacrifice, justice, silence, renunciation, and others I can't even name. They didn't speak, but their presence screamed inside me like 1,000 invisible drums. It was then that the angel spoke, without moving his lips, but using the vibration of space. This is the Council of 13, guardians of the cycles. 7 have awakened. 6 still sleep, When all rise, the seal of 2025 will be broken. At that moment, in the center of the room, a globe of the earth appeared, floating above a pedestal made of sound. It was a living, pulsating planet, covered in strands of energy, and among those strands was a symbol glowing a fiery red, the number 2025 in the form of a rune. It wasn't just a date, it was a spiritual gear about to turn. Suddenly, images began to explode around me. I saw the White House in absolute silence. I saw Moscow covered in dark snow. I saw Jerusalem vibrating with golden sound. But more than places, I saw intentions, human emotions creating invisible cracks in the fabric of the world. And that's when the council looked at me, all at the same time, as if they wanted to imprint something on me. "You were not chosen, you volunteered before you were born," said one of them, a figure who seemed to be made of stone and fire. "And so you will bring the vision of the seal to men. They must know. The earth has entered the countdown." Below the globe, I saw a dark box appear, locked. With codes of light, it was like a spiritual bomb, and the angel spoke with absolute gravity. "That's the trigger. He'll be touched by a man, and there'll be no turning back." At that moment, I felt a shiver run through my essence. I understood that the chaos of 2025 would not be imposed. It would be activated, by choice, by vibration, by consent. And every human being would have their part in this. So the angel took me to see who was about to activate that box. The room dissolved, and before I could breathe, if I even breathed, I was thrown into a space where there was no floor, no sky. It was like floating in a sea of human intentions. There, every thought of humanity had form. I saw ancient beliefs like burning, ruins. I saw political secrets like sleeping serpents beneath golden palaces. But the most terrifying thing was what I saw at the center of that ocean. Two gigantic figures loomed before me, cast in shadow and symbol. They were not men. They were living representations. One of them carried the vibration of collapse, dark suit, stare into space, an aura of rupture. It was Donald Trump. The other colder, denser, like an ancient stone guarding a hidden truth. Vladimir Putin. They were on opposite sides of an energy field, connected by invisible threads that formed a cosmic pattern. But they were not alone. Behind them I saw hooded figures, some with blank faces, others with eyes lit up like spiritual beacons. They represented hidden forces, invisible mentors of this entire architecture of chaos. And at the center of it all, the black box, suspended, spinning, waiting for human hands. The angel appeared beside me again and said, "They are not leaders. They are drummers. Humanity dances to the beat they play, but the final touch will come from someone ordinary, someone no one expects." At that moment, I saw images overlap like flashes. A teenager in New York, an elderly woman in the Russian countryside, an engineer in Tel Aviv. None of them were famous, but they all had something in common, a soul vibrating on the threshold of activation. I saw crowds marching in the streets, but with their eyes closed. I saw cell phones emitting hypnotic sounds that vibrated in tune with the speaker. I saw governments being manipulated not by ideologies but by vibrational patterns. Everything was being orchestrated by invisible frequencies. The war was not geopolitical, it was energetic. Then the angel pointed upward, and there it was. The veil, an etheric fabric floating above the earth, trembling like a membrane about to rupture. When the first thread breaks, the sequence will begin. The year will be 2025, and the chaos will seem physical, but it will be spiritual. I have seen earthquakes happening for no geological reason. I have seen leaders going crazy over decisions that seem to come out of nowhere. I have seen children dreaming about the same symbol, the black box with the burning seal. And I understood. It's not about Trump. It's not about Putin. It's about how much we let external symbols rule the internal chaos. The trigger will not be a button. It will be collective frequency, and she's already in tune. After the angel revealed the trigger holders, I was violently pulled upward, not like flying, more like being lifted by an emotional magnetic field. Space distorted, and then I saw it. The tear in the sky. It was real. A vertical crack that cut through the spiritual firmament like a scar opened in time itself. The light that escaped from it was unbearable. Not because it was strong, but because it carried too many truths at once. That was not physical light. It was a conscious light, a light that saw back. As soon as I got closer, I was sucked into the tear. It felt like my soul was passing through layers of creation that were never meant to be touched by mortals. And on the other side was the city of sound. Imagine a place where buildings are made of musical notes, where the streets vibrate, where the air emits high and low tones according to the intention of those who pass by. There, each thought creates a symphony. Each lie generates dissonance. Each truth resounds like silent thunder. In the center of the city there was a tower, high, impossibly high. But it was not made of stone. It was made of forgotten echoes of humanity. As if all the times we ignored our inner calling had accumulated there, forming a monument of oblivion. The angel appeared beside me once more. His form was clearer now and more terrible. He was made of layers of time. His face changed every second. Child, ancient, woman, star, nothing and everything. Hear thy sounds of the world are recorded. Every human choice emits a tone, and the chorus of the planet is dissonant. It was at that moment that I saw the worst. The city of sound was cracking. Cracks cut through the avenues. The tower shook with the weight of unmade choices. And in the sky of that city, the number 2025 pulsed like an alarm. A countdown that didn't mark days, but accumulated spiritual collapses. I saw spiritual schools crumbling. I saw priests of light trying to reverse vibrations with songs that no one else heard. And I saw, at the center of it all, an unfinished score. A song that could only be completed by collective consciousness. If the melody is not restored by 2025, said the angel, the sound of the world will become noise, and from noise will come chaos. His last words pierced me like a spear. The sky has already been torn apart. Now it remains to be seen who will have heard the trumpet that does not sound in the ears, but in the chest. And then, in the distance, I heard the sound begin. A low, ancient chord, as if the earth had begun to groan. The war didn't start with tanks. It started with the sound of the world breaking apart from within. The sound grew louder. It didn't come from outside. It came from within everything. Every particle of that dimension trembled in tune with what I can only call the consciousness of the planet screaming. It was the sound of accumulated memory, of hidden pain, of what was never said, echoing like silent thunder. The city of sound slowly dissolved. The buildings tuned to light turned to vibrational dust, and I found myself standing on an empty field. But it wasn't a physical field. It was a space between decisions. A courtyard where everything false falls apart. On the horizon, structures slowly rose. They looked like towers made of golden smoke. Each one represented an idea: religion, government, science, culture, media, and over them all, a symbol hovered. Burning scale, but these flames did not destroy. They revealed. The angel reappeared, now gigantic. His body blended into the sky itself. When he spoke, everything around him fell silent, as if reality needed to stop and listen. Now you will see the invisible judgment, not the one of religions, but the real one, the one that occurs within each human being without them realizing it. And then, a scene formed before me. I saw millions of people in their daily routines, on the subway, in lines, on social media. But something was different. Behind each of them there was a living shadow. These shadows watched them, recorded them, reacted to every thought, word, intention. These entities were not demons. nor angels. They were vibrational reflexes. They were the echoes of each person's own consciousness reacting to their choices. And as time passed, these shadows became lighter or denser. They were preparing for a specific moment. 2025. The judgment will not be announced. It will be felt, said the angel. There will be no trumpets, but there will be collapses. Not external, internal. I saw people being broken inside by trivial situations. I saw leaders going crazy because they could no longer sustain their lies. I saw young people going into a deep trance, suddenly awakening to truths that their ancestors denied for centuries. And I saw something even more profound, a portal forming in the heart of every human being, small, almost imperceptible, but ready to be activated. When I looked up at the sky, it was no longer torn. It was transparent, as if the entire theater of reality was being suspended so that souls could finally see what was always behind the stage. The angel turned to me with a burning vibration and said, "The true apocalypse will be intimate, and no one will escape the mirror." It was at that moment that I understood. Chaos does not come to punish. It comes to reveal. 25 will not be the end. It will be the moment when the whole world will be forced to look within, and whoever fails will be swallowed up by the noise. The field of invisible judgment began to disappear, as if absorbed by an even deeper force. And then I found myself faced with what was perhaps the most shocking sight of my entire journey, the mirror of the world. It was not a mirror as we know it. It was a colossal structure floating in the void, made of a liquid and living material, like celestial mercury pulsating in an oval shape. And everything it reflected was the truth behind appearances. It showed not what we are on the outside, but what the whole world feels, thinks, and hides. As I got closer, I began to see images forming, and each one was an open wound of humanity, forgotten wars, covered poverty, hidden corruption. But I also saw emotions, collective shame, ancestral fear, spiritual denial. Everything pulsed in the mirror like magnetic waves, and it was then that, in the center, there appeared a living date, 2025, no longer as a number, but asana wakai. "This is the year the mirror shatters," the angel said, appearing behind me. "And when it shatters, everything that has been hidden will scatter like shards of light and pain." The images intensified. I saw governments collapsing without logical explanation. I have seen disasters being disguised as natural accidents, but which in essence were energetic disruptions caused by collective, spiritual decisions. I also saw the two figures reappear, Trump and Putin. But this time they were not in human form. They were distorted, like overloaded holograms. Trump held a torch of white flames. Putin carried a key made of ice and shadow. And between them, the mirror began to crack. Each crack revealed a layer of reality that had been hidden: secret plans, mass mental manipulation, spiritual technologies being used to control emotions on a massive scale. Nothing was theory. Everything was shown with the pain of evidence. "Chaos will not come as a storm," said the angel. "It will come as an unmasking, and many will not be able to bear what they will see of themselves." The cracks spread until the mirror shattered. And the moment it shattered, a silent explosion tore through my soul. It was as if the world had let out a scream that had been held back for millennia. And from that explosion arose not an ordinary sound, but the note that had been lost since creation. A vibration that reordered everything around him: cities, memories, systems, thoughts. Everything began to rebuild itself in a new way, true, raw. But the angel was clear. This new order will only emerge after the collapse, and the fall will be painful, because the veil of lies is intertwined with each person's ego. Before I could process it, I was pulled again, and this time, to the beginning of the fuse. I was sucked brutally into a current of dark light as if I were passing through the DNA of human history. My thoughts were silent. My spirit was mute. There was no sound, no form, no time. Only the urgent sensation that I was being led to the very point where chaos begins. And then I saw it. It was an American city, but not as we know it. It was completely silent, as if the air itself had stopped vibrating. The buildings were intact. The streets were clean. There were no bombs, no fire, and yet everything was dead inside. People walked in a trance, eyes dull, faces fixed on screens, emotions neutralized. And then I realized this was the real apocalypse. A collapse of the human soul, which had already begun even before the first flash. The angel was beside me, but now silent. He just pointed, and I saw the first movement. It was a touch, a simple finger pressing a panel, but that gesture, made in an underground location, activated a pulse of invisible energy, a vibrational trigger that traveled through satellites, power stations, global neural networks, and that pulse woke up the box, the black box with the 2025 stamp. It opened without sound, without light, just an imperceptible shift in the air. But it was enough. I saw Trump waking up in the middle of the night, sweating, with a blank stare, as if he had heard a summons. I saw Putin kneeling in the Siberian ice, burying something, ancient and shivering as if he knew the cycle had begun. I saw heads of state receiving reports they didn't understand. Incoherent data, anomalous climate phenomena, people going into a collective trance. But no one understood the real reason. The veil had begun to tear, and now there was no stopping it. Social structures began to creak, not as if they were being destroyed, but as if they were being unmasked. The trigger is not a war. It is the revelation that precedes the war, the angel said finally. And the first waves have already begun to touch the minds of the masses. I saw schools being closed without explanation. I saw markets falling not because of bankruptcy but because spiritual panic. I saw children crying in their sleep because they dreamed of symbols they never learned, runes, seals, keys. And then the earth began to emit a sound. A low tone, almost imperceptible, but that vibrated in every living being. It was the final call. "The year is sealed," said the angel as the sky shook above me. "And whoever is not in the spirit of awakening will mistake the truth for madness." Chaos had a date. It had a tone. It had a name. 25. And the black box was still open, vibrating, awaiting a final gesture. The sound of the earth grew louder, and my entire soul vibrated like a string stretched to its limit. I was being pulled by this frequency, carried into a new space, a spiritual field surrounded by monumental shadows. And there, in the center of it all, she stood before me, tower-like. It wasn't made of concrete or stone. It was a living construction, made of collective thoughts, ancient fears, manipulated narratives. It was the tower of human illusion, supported not by physical structure, but by unconscious agreement. The angel pointed at her, his voice heavy as time. "This is the tower that must fall, and it will not fall by missiles. It will fall when men stop feeding it." I began to see the threads that held it together. Millions of energy cords connected to human minds. Each thread was a false belief, a blind obedience, a trauma never healed. The entire world, unknowingly, kept the tower standing. I walked among these wires. I saw public figures, religious leaders, artists, politicians, all trapped. Some smiled, some screamed. All pretended to be in control. But deep down, they were puppets of something they didn't even know they were serving. Among the wires, two pulsed with frightening intensity. Trump is Putin. But now I saw them for what they really were on that plane. Archetypal icons. Not people, but forces. Trump represented the rupture, the shard that exposes the wound. Putin was the enigma, the guardian of a hidden past that refuses to die. Both were pulling multitudes to opposite poles of the same vibrational prison, and the tower shook every time one of them made a strategic move, because up there at the top of this spiritual construct was the empty throne. Yes, the same throne I had seen before, but now shrouded in layers of dark energy, the throne that still was waiting for a specific human vibration to be occupied. This throne will be accessed not by force but by resonance, said the angel. And when that happens, the tower will fall from within. Light began to penetrate the structure, like a laser passing through dark glass. Each ray revealed suffocated truths, systems of emotional manipulation, pacts between nations and spiritual entities, hidden technologies of population frequency control. And when the tower began to crack, the sky burned. Not in physical fire, but in light so intense that it seemed to cut through the very soul. It was the judgment of illusion. Humanity was being forced to see, and many could not bear it. I saw people kneeling in the streets not knowing why. I saw devices fail en masse, clocks go crazy, birds change their course. Everything was responding to vibrational collapse. The tower screamed, and it collapsed. I am here. The silence that followed was absolute and sacred. The time of the fall has come. Now, the time of choosing begins. When the tower fell, there was no celebration. There was no relief. There was just a dense silence, like the exact moment after a thunderclap shatters mountains. And then a new landscape emerged before me, as if the collapse had cleared the space for the next scene. The city of awakened souls. It was a place without geography. Nothing there was made of matter. The building seemed made of memory, of intention. Each building pulsed as if it were a living consciousness. Each street seemed a rewritten line of destiny, and hovering over it all, 7 pillars of light projected into infinity. The angel walked beside me, or perhaps he was just vibrating inside me. His voice was more serene now, but no less powerful. This is the city where souls prepare, not to fight, but to remember, because the next battle will be against oblivion. In the center there was a square. In it I saw thousands of beings gathered, but not as in a disorderly crowd. They were still, lined up, in profound silence, as if they were receiving something, or awaiting a command. I walked among them. Some had human forms. Others seemed to be made of wind, water, fire, but they all vibrated at the same frequency. Wake up. I saw familiar faces. I saw children who had not yet been born. I saw elders who seemed to carry the memory of forgotten ages. I saw artists, soldiers, scientists, healers. None were leaders. All were carriers. And then, in the center of the square, there appeared the same throne as before, now surrounded by thousands of tiny lights. It was no longer empty, but it was also not occupied by a single presence. It was being filled by everyone. This will be the revolution of 2025, said the angel. There will be no savior, there will be a chorus, a collective frequency so high that it will break what remains of the old cycle. The city's sky began to open into windows. Each window showed a different earth, one in total collapse, another one under silent reconstruction, and a third where the children guided the adults. In the last one, I saw something that made me shiver. An ordinary human being, sitting on the throne, without a crown, without a cape, without any symbol, but with a heart completely open, radiating a light that did not blind, it healed. The new cycle will be occupied by those who accept chaos as childbirth, not as punishment, whispered the angel. It was then that I heard the trumpet. Not in the air, inside my chest, a vibration that didn't hurt, but broke through deep layers of oblivion, a note impossible to forget, even after returning to the flesh. Everything around me began to fade. The city shattered into golden particles. Souls returned to silence, and I knew was coming back. But the final image was still missing. The sealing seed. The buhl. Space around me dissolved into liquid gold. Everything floated, everything vibrated. And in the midst of that silent vastness, I stopped. No body, no name, no time. And it was there, in that vacuum between worlds, that the last vision has arrived. Didn't come as a scene, nor as a word. It came as absolute presence. A new light descended before me, denser, more ancient. It was not the angel. It was something above. Something that resembled what we call source, but that required no reverence, only responsibility. Before me, there appeared a floating book. But it was not a physical book. It was made of vibration, of time in its purest form, of living history. Each page emitted different tones as if they were notes of a cosmic music. The book opened, and there she was, the 2025 page. Written not in ink, but in burning light. The structure was complex, closer to an emotional equation than to text. Each line represented an accumulation of human decisions, collective and individual. It wasn't a destiny. It was a mirror vibrating on the edge of manifestation. And then, something happened. The page started to fade, not as someone who is deleted, but as someone who waits new writing. The angel, who now appeared as an extension of the light itself, touched me with his vibration. And in that touch, he made me understand. 2025 is not sealed. It is blank. The box has been opened. The tower has fallen. The mirror has broken. Now, the page awaits whoever dares to write with conscience. I felt a warmth rise up through my soul, a light weight, as if I were being invited or challenged to touch reality with my deepest will. And in that moment, a new page has come loose from the book. She came to me, white, viva, breathing. "This is your part," said the angel. "Every human being will carry one. Every choice in 2025 will be a letter, and every letter will be a brick of the new reality." I looked at the earth one last time. Now it was divided into two vibrational fields. On one side, cold light, control, blind obedience. On the other, hot light, creative chaos, wild awakening. In the middle, a vibrating portal, not a travel portal, but a portal of choice, and he was about to open up. Before I left, I saw the faces one more time. Trump, Putin, others that had not yet emerged, and ordinary people like you, like me. Everyone with a blank page in their hands, and an invisible pen in the heart. The angel spoke one last time. The trumpet will not be heard in the ears. It will be felt in the chest. And whoever writes with fear will feed chaos. But whoever writes with truth will open the new time. And then, everything went dark. I was jerked back, like someone coming back from a deep dive. The sounds of the hospital, the alarms, the screams, they came back like a punch. My lungs inflated, my eyes stung. I was back, but something had come with me. The IDI sound, the seal, the certainty. 2025. It won't be just 1 year. It will be the battlefield between who we are and who we pretend to be, and what each of us does with our blank page will shape the world after the tear. If you like this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.